everybody. All right. So we're starting right away with a question from Anthony. Hello, Anthony, and Happy New Year to you too. Anthony asks, is it a good idea to change your daily routine once in a while? And before that question, I'm going to remind you that I answer the question based on Eddie's world, right? Okay? In my little world of influence, my answers are my answers. I do not speak for anybody else. Oh, it looks like I just got bumped off for a second there. Okay, let me say that again just in case you guys missed it. The answers that I give are the answers that have to do with the way I teach system and all that stuff, okay? Because, and the reason I have to say that is because I know that there are trumpet players out there who will disagree with me on this issue, okay? So just in case I got cut off at that part, Anthony asks, is it okay to change your, oh no, he says it's a good idea to change your daily routine every once in a while. And so there's two answers to that based on two interpretations of the question, right? One interpretation of the question is the daily routine that we're talking about as being that time during the day when you do your quote unquote warm up, right? Because some people will say my daily routine and they're talking about their whole practice day, what they do each day. So let's talk about that one first. My answer to that one is you can't help but to do it differently every day, right? If you're looking at your whole practice day, you can't help but from one day to the next do it differently because life happens. And I believe that if you force it to be the same, and it looks like I'm freaking out my camera. Let me back up a little bit. If you force it to be the same every day, we're talking about the whole day practice. If you force it to be the same, you are doing something wrong somewhere else in your life. So no, I don't think you should ever be the same when it comes to the daily practice, like the whole day. Now, when we talk about the routine, which is probably what you're talking about, but I wanted to clarify that because other people will be watching this. If you're talking specifically about that time of the day that we call the daily routine, then that's the part where a lot of people will say, no, you should never change that. And I disagree with that. And in fact, you know, in the last Q&A, I held up a stack of books like this, right? They're up on the printer right now, okay? Now, not all of those books that I've written are routine books, but a lot of them are. I'd say about a third of them, okay? One of the reasons why I have so many of those is because on different days you need different routines. Now, what I've been able to do is give you the same benefits each day. Now, I'm not saying, don't think I'm trying to sell a book here. I'm just saying, if you want to have something different each day, you can have those same benefits that I programmed into the first routine on any of the routines that I do. Does that make sense? So like for example, let me grab the books real quick. Oh, so I'm going to call different books here. And part of the answer to this is visible on the hourglass. And here we have 4 pyramids on the cover. This is the original routine book that I wrote. This book I wrote, this book I wrote when I figured out that my students needed a shorter routine. Over the years, when I was teaching out of this book mostly, I was showing those students how to shorten the routine to their length, what they needed it for. And I thought after a while, I'm like, they really should have special routines just for the people that don't have. The way I break this up, if you practice more than an hour a day, this is the book you should use. If you practice less than an hour a day, this is the book you should use. Okay? And so, yeah, you can go back and read those. And so if you're tired of the one you've been doing, okay, if you're tired of the one you've been doing, then you can start a different one, right? And now I'm making it more interesting to switch because we got this new series of books coming out. The 3 that are so far, okay, replace the other ones eventually. But one of these can be done instead of the other. You get the same benefit. I think, of course, the newer ones are going to have more benefit, right? Because I've had more time to put into them, more experience, to invest into them. Now, let me tell you this. Another way you can add variety to your routine, and yes, I do encourage this. Let's say you go to some master class. Let's pretend you're my student, you're doing my routine, right? But you go to some master class and they hand out a triple tongue exercise. And you're like, oh, I want to do that triple tongue exercise. Well, you just replace the one that's in my book. Don't do the one I put and do the one that you got from the same thing with long tones, same thing with scales, anything. Lip slurs, you can get a lot of the same benefits from my book while substituting different sections, as long as you keep those sections in the right order. That's the key thing. Okay? But yes, that's the long answer to your question. The short answer is yes, I do think it's a good idea to change your routine. I do it almost every day. Let that sink in. Right now, I can't say that because I'm writing, and I think I mentioned this in a previous Q&A. Right now, I'm writing this series right now, right? And the routine that I do is the routine I'm working on. Okay, so lately, I've only been doing, like right now, I'm doing this book, but not this one. It's the Trumpet Chops Apprentice book. That's the one I've been practicing every day because that's the one I'm writing right now. And what I do is I'll put it on the computer, I'll play it, and when I get to something, I say, oh, that should be different, and I'll edit it. And each day I go back and I do that again. And each day I'll go back and do it again. And that's why, the quality on these books, not that the other ones were bad, don't get me wrong, but I just have a better system for doing it now. So right now, I don't vary my routine all that much. But normally, and I'll go back to the way I was doing it before, normally I do a different routine every day. And I specifically went out of my way on these newer routines to make sure that there was something different enough from one to the next that when you switch from one book to the other, it feels like you're doing something different. So yeah. Anyway, the next question is from KCKC. How do you get a dark tone? Well, how do you get a dark tone? That's a big can of worms right there, because what some people mean by dark tone is not what other people will mean by a dark tone. There's not a consensus on this. Okay, we can get technical about that, and we can say that a dark tone. So dark tone would be a tone that has fewer overtones, or not fewer, but less prominent overtones in it. So you want the quickest way to get a dark tone is you get a deep cup mouthpiece. Yes, I have heard of Matilda Lloyd. I just can't remember right now where I know that name from. Somebody probably I heard on YouTube, maybe. I don't know. That name does sound familiar to me. Okay, let me look up real quick. Is this somebody on YouTube? I'll look it up real quick. Oh, I forgot when I'm streaming, sometimes it doesn't work so well. Matilda Lloyd. Oh, yes, I remember her. Okay, so let's talk about that then. That's not a dark tone. You know what? See, all of this is relative, right? I wouldn't call that a dark tone. But you might call it a dark tone if. Sure. You might call that a dark tone if you have a bright tone. Right? It's all relative. You might consider that a dark tone because, and I'm not saying that's the case. I've never heard you play. I don't think anyway, right? But let's say hypothetically, someone who's listening to someone who plays what I call resonantly. If someone plays resonantly, then and you listen to them and you're used to playing on a more bright sound, that person will sound like they have a dark tone to you. So, like, for example, if who you normally listen to, this is a good way of putting it. If you normally only ever listen to lead trumpet players or people with a bright sound, like classical guys that have a really, really bright sound, and then you listen to somebody that has a centered sound, it can sound dark. Anyway, so here we go. Trumpet players, the modern classical trumpet players sound the way they do because they play in tune. It's more complicated than just that, but that's the bottom line. And when I say in tune, I don't mean in tune to the band or in tune to the orchestra or in tune to the piano. No, I mean they play in tune to the instrument. Okay? They play, the term that we use is they play to the center of the pitch. Then, once you are playing to the center of the pitch, you can make equipment changes that will emphasize certain qualities and stuff like that. Okay, so normally, let me play her stuff real quick, just so I can make sure I'm talking about the right thing. The computer might not like this. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. The most important thing you have to do if you want to have that kind of sound is to learn how to play in tune to the instrument. And so how would you do that? One of the most important things you can do to do that is play long tones. Practice long tones. Practice, as part of your long tones, you should be doing lip bends. So when you do a lip bend, think about what the lip bend is, right? And it's an orchestral guy that came up with it, Jimmy Stamp. I don't know if people were doing that before him, James Stamp is the one that made this a popular thing. Now, when you start a pitch, you start at the pitch, bring the pitch down, and then let it float back into pitch again. That's helping you find the center of the pitch. That's the original reason why people have been doing lip bends, is to help them find the center of the pitch. You play to the center of the pitch with the proper air and all that stuff. Okay, so air is also a part of that. Okay, but I think the center of the pitch thing is more important than the air. If we're gonna prioritize it, I would say that getting the center of the pitch is primarily important. Filling the horn with appropriate air, not too forceful. If you make it too forceful, then the pitch goes off. You end up, if you push too much air, you have to tighten up too much on the resistance. Okay, so it can't be too much air, but it can't be too little air, because then it goes flat. So we want the right amount of air. We want to put the note to the center of the pitch. Now, another thing you can do, and this is the one thing that I get the most resistance on, and it's the one, I should have said this was the most important thing. Okay, is that you should be listening on a regular basis to trumpet players that have the sound that you're looking for. You can listen to her, but I strongly recommend listening. I'm gonna pull up my page so I can give you a link. I have a page on my website with YouTube links on it with the top classical players in the world. And I'll put it in here so that you can click on that. Trumpet listening page. Here it is. I'm going to put a link. And what you do is the links on this page take you to, there's a link at the top of each person that takes you to a YouTube search with that person's name. Then there's a link right under that will take you to that person's website. So that starts off with Maurice Andre, Ola Edvard Antonsen, David Baldwin, Alison Balsam, Mary Elizabeth Bowden. And I think there's about 40 of these trumpet players on this list. Okay, here's the link. I'm going to put it on there now. Okay, and that will take you to a page that has the people that you should be listening to for that kind of sound. Okay, that's a very important part of it. You surround yourself. Now, the way this works, and really, I'm serious. Most people resist this, and I think different people resist it for different reasons. Okay, most people resist this sometimes because they don't see how it makes sense. They don't see how listening to music can actually change how they play, because it happens on a subconscious level. So they just don't believe that it works. Okay, so there's that part of it. And then there's this other attitude where people think that getting stuff done on the trumpet takes more effort. They think it has to take more effort, right? That if you're not like really going for it, then nothing will happen. And part of that is the way people have been taught, right? But there's actually stuff you can do that makes everything easier. Like my routine, right? And I'm not I said already that I'm not trying to sell books with the Q&A. But that's how my books are set up. My books I'm talking about the routine books. So that would be the daily routines, the Chops Express, and then these Trumpet Chops books that are coming out. When you do those routines on a regular basis, you don't have to work so hard anymore. You don't have to try so hard to get stuff done. You become more efficient in your practice time. Okay? And by the way, if you were my student and you said, I want that kind of sound, one of the first things I would I would say her tone is a centered sound. She's got a centered tone. Or you could use the word resonant. You can say she's got a resonant sound. That's how I would say it. Okay? Anyway, so if you were my student and you said, I want to get a better sound, I would make sure that you're doing the routine from my books. It doesn't matter which one. I would make sure that you're doing that routine first, the first thing you do each day when you practice. Because that's going to help you put those things in place. For example, I said that you do the lip bend. These books have lip bends in them. The daily routines doesn't, because I wasn't in the lip bends yet at that time. But yes, the whole concept of that approach to getting a better sound is in doing the right stuff in the right order, which is what my routines are, and surrounding yourself with that sound all the time. So yeah. All right. So are there any other questions? So by the way, this is a new time. Where can you go to get the price for lessons? Well, right now I am in the process of changing the prices. Okay. So right now my price list is not up right now because we are right now changing the prices. It looks like the lessons are going to be $55 a lesson. That's for an hour. I think it was $35 for a half hour. I have to look at the sheet. I don't remember. Now that's if you commit to weekly lessons. If you don't want to do weekly lessons and you just want to take one lesson, we have to put a administration fee on that too. Okay, but that's going to be up on the website no later. I don't want to promise it, but I'm hoping no later than Monday. So, and on my front page there is a link to that page. Okay, on eddielewis.com. All right. Any other questions? Oh, I was saying, we moved this to Friday evening, because I have too many students on Saturdays now. And I told you guys when we first started doing these live Q&A, I told you that if we had to move it, we would move it. So I warned you. And maybe this time won't work because people are doing a lot of stuff on Friday evenings. I didn't originally do Friday evenings because I knew everybody in marching band wouldn't show up. Do you think playing softly helps get rid of an airy sound? Playing softly, yes, indirectly. If you play super soft, like what they call whisper tones, some people call them whisper tones. If you play as soft as, so soft that sometimes the notes don't come out, what that's going to do is force you to use less pressure. Okay? To get the notes out, you can't use pressure if you're playing that soft. And something I just discovered not long ago is that airy sound is often caused by too much pressure. I'm talking about mouthpiece pressure. Okay? Airy sound is usually, most likely, caused by too much mouthpiece pressure. All right? So when you play super, super soft, it forces you to use less pressure because otherwise a note just won't come out. Okay? And there's also other stuff that causes, what am I saying? Okay, so let me be more detailed than that. Because for me, what I discovered a long time ago is that if I play super, super soft, that's how I figured out, by the way, that because my embouchure is off to the side, I do not try to play straight on. I point my if you look at all my videos, I point to the side. I'm about, I guess, about 15 degrees off from center. Okay. Now, how did I figure that out? I figured that out by playing super, super soft so that the notes almost don't come out. Now, what's the connection there? If you play super, super, super soft, you're not putting any pressure. In order to get those notes, you can't put all that pressure. On the trumpet, if you're pointing forward and you're not using pressure, it won't even touch the lip on this side for me because I play off to the side. If I don't turn the horn to that angle, it's not sealing right on this side. When you use more pressure, you can make it seal. I hope that makes sense. So yes, there's a whole bunch of wonderful things that can happen when you play soft. Now, I would not recommend playing soft like that as part of your routine. You should do that as a separate part of your day. Okay? Do that as a separate part of your day. Because you want your routine to be full volume. I shouldn't say full volume. When I do the routine, I want the students to do full comfortable volume. So it's not loud enough to make you uncomfortable, not soft enough to make you uncomfortable. I want the air on all the exercises in the routine to be comfortable. Okay? So as a separate part of your day, and a great set of exercises to do that with is Herbert L. Clark's setting up drills, which is basically just a bunch of scales. Now, if you don't have that book or you don't have access to that book, you can use instead his routine, his, what do you call it, the technical studies, and just go down in half steps, not up, right? Play it super, super, super soft. Right? So that it almost doesn't come out, and play it, try to get it the best sound that you can in that super soft volume. Then go down a half step, go down another half step. And the reason we go down in half steps is it's just harder. The lower you go, the harder it is to play soft. So if you want to work on, now, that said, when I'm, okay, so I told you that I only recently started I only recently figured out that the pressure was causing the airy tone, right? And for me, I just tell myself, don't use so much pressure. If you just firm up the meat in the lips a little bit more, the muscles, firm up the muscles a little bit more, and just relax the pressure on the lips, the tone can clean up like that. All right. Do you have any tips for getting higher than F on the staff? So my approach to range is called range familiarity. And if you'd like to know the whole system, I'll give you a overview right now. But if you'd like to know the whole system, you can read about it in my One Range book. The One Range book talks about how to build your range. Now, here's the thing. The One Range book is about building your range without messing up the other qualities of your playing. So, like, for example, you want to have, you tell me in the one question that you want to get a darker sound, and then you tell me you want to build your range. Did you know that those two kind of contradict each other? Getting a better sound, building a better range, it's quite possible to build a better range and make yourself have a worse sound. Okay? That's one of the things you have to watch out for when you're building your range and when you're getting advice about range. You want to listen. So you just gave me a great example of somebody who has a beautiful sound. Now, you go to the guys who are teaching high notes on this platform, on YouTube. Go to listen to guys that are teaching high notes. There are a few exceptions, right? But the majority of them who are teaching high notes, listen to their sound. And it's not the kind of sound that you're looking for. If you want to sound like hers, Matilda. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because my One Range book is all about that. It's about building your range without sacrificing anything else in your playing, including the sound. Okay? And it works. I said I'd give you an overview. It works by through familiarity. The more familiar you are with those notes, the less you have to struggle to get them. I remember when I was young, someone said that playing from low C to high C should be just like playing on the piano. Boom, right? Just like playing on the piano. And at that time, I was like, that's impossible. Because I was thinking in terms of the higher you go, the more effort you have to put. But it's not true. It doesn't take more effort to play higher. I haven't played high in a long time, it seems like. Let's see what I can do. You know what? Well, let me remind you, this is a huge horn and a very deep mouthpiece, okay? This is not the equipment I would normally play high notes on, but let's see how it goes right now. Okay, so that was a super C, the infamous super C, right? And I didn't put, now there, you might have seen me kind of turn a little bit red. That's not because I'm trying harder. That's because as you go higher, the aperture closes down a little bit more. And if I'm supporting the same, then there's a little bit more back pressure than usual, right? So I haven't played, I don't practice those notes. I stopped practicing those notes a long, long, long time ago, and I only ever demonstrate them for students just to make an example like that, not to show off. I don't need anybody to know that I can play high. I don't need anyone to know that. Okay, it's not to show off. It's just to demonstrate how easy it is. Okay, and if it's easy for me to play that high, it should be easier for you to play something that's not that high. Okay, but how do we get there to where it's easy? The answer to that is familiarity. You have to make sure. And you know what? One of the reasons why I figured this out, I remember when I was young, college age, right? I'm not that. If I'm saying college age was young, then I must be pretty old now, right? So back when I was in college, I remember playing all my long tones, right? And I did a lot of long tones back then. And I noticed that not a single one of those exercises went up past C, tuning note C. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You're not getting range familiarity if you're only doing long tones up to C. Right? I had lots of lip slurs that I was doing, but none of them covered my full range. Articulation, most of the articulation stuff stayed in the middle of the staff. So you see what I'm saying? You can't claim familiarity with those notes if you're not actually using them, right? And a good example of that is my tonalization studies. By the way, I know this sounds like I'm trying to sell books, but my books are set up. My books are set up for exactly what we're talking about here. I'm going to show you the Chops Express, okay? Chops Express, Daily Routines and Chops Express both have 7 routines in them. 7 routines for 7 different levels, okay? So the first level has a routine that only goes up to C. Tuning note C, that's the first level. Nothing in the first routine goes higher than that. Nothing. The second routine has exercises that go up to E. Nothing in the second routine goes goes any higher than E. Then the next one goes up to G. The next one above that goes up to B flat. The next one above that goes up to B natural. I mean, not B natural. What am I saying? C natural. Then E and then G. I used to have 2 more that went up to B flat and C, like super C. And then people were calling it my high note book. And I took it off the market. Huh? I used to sell a book that had routines up to the B flat above high C and the C above high C. Okay, so yeah. And so the way these routines work is you can spend time at the ones that you can do. And I strongly recommend that you now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that's what it was. Sorry. I strongly recommend that you check out the One Range book. Look for it I think even if you type on Google, just One Range. Not even have to type my name. One Range. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. Okay, let's put One Range Eddie Lewis. And it comes up at the top. So you can get it anywhere. You get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere in the world, really, for that matter. And that book will help you put all this stuff that I'm talking about into play. All right, so you're a band director and it's chair test time. Would you rather have a trumpet player with okay range or okay tone and can play all scales 2 octaves, or a player with great tone but only 1 octave scale? Well, I can tell you that I don't work like that. Okay. If I was going to be the band director, and I'm not, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm not a band director, but I would be more concerned with the overall student. And I know that a lot of times the reason they don't put more effort into looking at the overall student is because it just takes time. It just takes time and effort. Range. So how much does range matter? I might not. Let's say you had a range only up to F, and we're talking about the top band in my school, and I want to do music that's up to high C and stuff like that. I would probably not put you on the first first chair. I would, if you were better than everybody else but didn't have the range, I would not put you on first chair, but I would put you on first part, maybe put you on second. Okay. And the reason for that has more to do with my concern for your progress than for the band. Okay? Because I don't want you to push your range. I'm talking about if I was your band director, I would not want you to push your range. What am I saying? So that if you push your range too quickly, all that bad stuff that we're talking about that can happen if you don't build your range correctly is going to come into play. All right. So I don't want, if I'm your band director, I don't want to be the one causing that to happen. Don't confuse that with the stance that some people have where they're afraid to make students push their range. I'm saying don't push your range quickly. That's why I would have you on the first part. I would want you to play up to a certain range. Play everything that goes up to that range that's in the book. And then not anything higher than that. I would actually put that into play in the band. I say that hypothetically because who knows what kind of pressures I would have as a band director. I don't know. I've not ever lived that life before. But if in an ideal world where I could take every individual student and do what was best for that student, then that's what I would do. I would put you on first part, but not on first chair. That's how I would do it. Okay. Now here's the thing. I don't know what so at this point, I don't know anything about you, and that's fine, right? If you want to do this for a long time, let's say you're in this for the long haul, right? You want to play trumpet the rest of your life, maybe even professionally, but if not professionally, then you want to at least play through college and play in community bands as you get older and stuff like that, right? Why would you want to push first chair now, when you know that there's some risk in it? Wouldn't you want the best for your whole life? I remember when I was trying to explain this to a student years and years ago in the 90s, and his father, I like when the parents come to the lesson. Okay? I really like when the parents come to the lesson because the students I've never had a student that the parents came to the lesson that the student didn't become awesome. I mean, awesome. And I don't know what the connection is there. But anyway, I had this student. It was one of the first awesome students I ever had. And his father's a doctor. And his father would, a lot of times the parents, the reason they stay in the lesson is because they enjoy it so much. I have students' parents telling me, I have a student that comes on Saturday and her grandfather brings her, and the grandfather says, "I'm here for my lesson." so, so he really enjoys coming to the lessons. But anyway, so like in the 90s, I was trying to explain this to the son, to the guy's son, and he says, "Oh, what you're talking about is called deferred gratification." I said, "What's that?" And he explained it to me. He said, "Deferred gratification is when you put off being happy now so that you can have more happiness later. That's called deferred gratification. It's one of those things that just makes people better people, right? You put off being happy now. In other words, so, in that context, we were talking about it in the context of being bored while you practice, right? There's a lot of people who say, "Oh, I won't do this because it's boring." And being bored, isn't that a small price to pay for the kind of life you can have later as a result? But in this case, what we're talking about is band, right? Why would you want to be, quote unquote, first chair if there was a chance that being first chair would actually make you play worse and have less musical joy down the road? You see what I'm saying? Now be careful, because there's people out there. I'm subscribed to some of the trumpet blogs, not trumpet blogs, trumpet YouTube channels, because I want to know what these other guys are doing. Because not so I know what the competition is doing, so to speak, but so that I don't duplicate what they're doing, right? I have this big thing about not, before I write a book, right? I go out and I look and see if someone else has already written something like that. I did that. One of the biggest times I ever did that was with my duet book. I wanted to see if anybody had written any duet books like the duet book I was about to write. And I bought like 24 duet books. Every duet book I could get my hands on, just to see if anybody was doing what I do, because I loathe the idea of writing something that somebody else has already written. What a waste of time, right? So the same thing with the YouTube channel stuff. That's why I subscribe to their stuff. But that also means that I know what they're pitching, right? And there's a YouTube high note guy out there who's really pushing you to be first chair, and to be first chair now. And I want to caution everybody about that. Okay? Don't sacrifice your future playing for now. Don't sacrifice, and for that matter, don't sacrifice the other good qualities of your playing for the high notes. Okay? Anyway, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? I have a very different way of approaching high notes. By the way, that super C is not my highest note. That's why I could say I'm not playing the super C to show off, right? Because my range goes higher than that. not much higher. F's and G's above that, depending on the day. Right? I guess that really makes it not really my range. It's just E's. The E's. Can you play E above the staff? Yeah. Well, I just played C. Okay, so here's E above the staff. Okay, that's the E above the staff. Hi, Mr. Lewis. I have an old student trumpet and I'm thinking about refurbishing that horn. In your opinion, do you think it's worth it to refurbish a non-expensive horn, or do you think it's better to buy a new one? Well, the price for a restoration is $150. If you like the horn, I guess it depends on. I guess it depends on what you want to do, right? What kind of playing you want to do. In almost all the pop stuff, I would say it's all right, right? And the jazz stuff, it's all right. I don't think you have to have a really, really nice horn to be that kind of player. If you want to be a classical player who competes on a national level, then yes, I would want to get another horn. But that's an aside, right? Mostly, I would say if you like the horn and you want to spend some money to get it fancied up, I would say go ahead and get it fancied up. It's all about, in music. And I think who got me moving in this direction is Igor Stravinsky, right? I read his book. Now, originally it wasn't a book. Originally it was a lecture that he gave. And if you're not familiar with Igor Stravinsky, he's the one that wrote The Rite of Spring and pieces like that, right? And he wrote in his book, he said, talking about the rules for composition. He says, what rules for composition? Nobody writes so he can follow some rules. He says composition is, when you're composing, it's like an animal grubbing for food. And when I read that, I had recently seen a movie or a special on TV about these pigs that they used to find truffles in France. Right? So the image I had in my head when I read that was these huge pigs looking for truffles in the forest. And so, yeah, Stravinsky says when we write a composition, there's no rules. We're not satisfied by rules. We're out there doing what we're doing. We're looking for what satisfies us. In the case of the animal, he's looking for something that will satisfy his hunger, right? And for us as composers, we're looking for what sounds satisfy us as a composer. And after I read that, I'm thinking, okay, so what are the rules then? And I think what the rules are just ways that help you get to that sound faster. But if you have to break those rules to get to that sound, then you break the rules. Like just the first thing off the top of my head, they say don't write parallel fifths. Well, if that's the sound you want, then that's the sound you go for. If you want to write parallel fifths in your music, which I've done on a lot of my pieces since the very beginning, does that make sense? So when we look at the equipment, We're not looking at what the right trumpet is. We're not looking at what the best trumpet is, because that's more in that rule category. What we want from our horns is the horn that we like. The ultimate trumpet is the trumpet that you like the most. That's, by the way, the reason why I don't have a Blackburn trumpet. Okay? I mean, what am I saying? A C trumpet. The reason I don't have a C trumpet is I played on, now twice, I played on a Blackburn C. I can't live without the Blackburn C. And since I don't have money for a Blackburn C, I don't have a C trumpet. Okay? And I decided that my B-flat trumpet, not this one, but my other B-flat trumpet, has such a beautiful sound. Why would I go to a gig with an inferior C trumpet if I can transpose all the parts, right? I'll go with my B-flat, transpose all the parts, and get a better sound than what I get on my C trumpet. And I'll keep doing that way until I get a Blackburn C trumpet. At this point, I don't know when it's going to happen, because I made that decision, I think, about 20 years ago. And the trumpets just keep getting more and more expensive every year, right? When I made this decision, the Blackburn was $3,000. Now I think they're like $5,500. Yeah, so that's what I would say is play on the horn you like to play on, and if you really like the horn you've got, by all means, get it refurbished. What is my favorite scale? KC asked me, what is my favorite scale? I don't have a favorite scale. Let me talk a little bit about scales, because I am a jazz player and I practice a lot of scales. Now, I don't practice redundant scales, so I don't practice the modes. You'll never hear me practicing a Dorian scale, because that's the way I practice is so complete. There would be absolutely no difference between, and I talk about this on one of my videos. It's called the scales that we don't practice. So I practice major scale, I practice harmonic minor, I practice melodic minor. I don't practice natural minor because that's a mode, right? So I don't practice that one. I practice several, symmetric scales. I practice the chromatic scale, I practice the whole tone scale, I practice the diminished scale, augmented scale, the tritone scale. And then I practice what I call Persian minor. And I finally found out, so I still practice it this way, but when I use it in public, I use a different mode. And that's perfectly demonstrates what I'm saying about the scales that we don't practice, right? I don't use that mode. The mode that I use is, let me see. Oh, I can't remember now. That's how well I know it. That's my newest scale. If I had to say what do I like most, what's my favorite, I would have to say that's my favorite, because it's the newest one. I'm having fun with it. I've been playing scales for 40 years. Right? 45 years now. And so this one's the newest one. I enjoy playing it because it's a breath of fresh air. Okay, any other questions? I have time for one more question for anybody that's still there. Okay, well, so thanks guys for hanging out. I cannot do this on Friday every week because I do get gigs. January is normally a slow month, so might not be any problem with January because of the slow gig season in January. But if I don't, it'll be because can I listen to? Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll do that. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll check it out this week, and you come back next week. I'll tell you what I think. Okay, we'll do that. All right. Um, so yeah, we'll try to do these on Fridays now, and see how that works. Okay. All right. God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you on the next one.